Today on Business Daily, Tinubu promises stronger economic future as the GDP surpasses expectations in the third quarter. Central Bank of Nigeria extends BDC's recapitalization by 6 months. And Trump vows tariffs on Mexico and Canada, deeper tariffs on China. Business Daily, where we delve into the world of business. I am Amaka Daniels. We'll start off in the news where the federal government of Nigeria, through the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security and the Fundação Getulio Vargas of Brazil, have signed a memorandum of understanding to advance private sector development in fertilizer production, hybrid seed technology, and agricultural finance. The MOU was signed on behalf of the government by the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, Temitope Afashedemi, and the President of the FGV, Professor Carlos Ivan Simonsen Lier, at its headquarters in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, on the sidelines of the G20 Leaders Summit. Now, the agreement marks a new phase of strategic collaboration between Nigeria and Brazil, the Green Imperative Project, lead implementer, one of the largest international agricultural technology transfer initiatives. Now, this project is also supported by the Dutch Bank and aims to deliver transformative agricultural technologies and knowledge transfer over its 10-year duration. Since its conception in 2018, the $1.2 billion cooperative project will identify and support one agribusiness in Nigeria's 774 local government areas with technical and financial resources, driving sustainable development as well as economic growth. And in another development, Nigeria's gross domestic product grew by 3.46% year-on-year in real terms during the third quarter of 2024. Now, this marks an improvement over the 2.54% growth recorded in the third quarter of 2023 and the 3.19% achieved in the second quarter of 2024. According to the report by the NBS on Monday, the services sector emerged as the primary driver of this growth, expanding by over 5.19% and contributing 53.58% to the aggregate GDP. In comparison, the NBS report said that the agricultural sector posted a modest growth of 1.14%, which is slightly below the 1.30% recorded in the third quarter of 2023. Meanwhile, the industry sector also demonstrated a notable recovery with a growth rate of 2.18%, which surpasses the 0.46% recorded in the corresponding quarter of the previous year. In nominal terms, Nigeria's GDP for the third quarter of 2024 stood at 71.13 trillion naira, reflecting a year-on-year nominal growth of 17.26% from 60.66 trillion naira in the third quarter of 2023. Now, the NBS also said that the nation's average daily oil production climbed to 1.47 million barrels per day in the third quarter of 2024, reflecting a steady increase compared to previous periods. Still looking at the economy, the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has reassured Nigerians of a stronger economic outlook as the country continues to expand following the release of the third quarter gross domestic product report by the National Bureau of Statistics. Now, the 3.46% growth is evidence that Nigeria is recovering from the unintended effects of recent reforms and that President Bola Tinubu's efforts to drive a more robust economy and, by extension, a better standard of living for all Nigerians are progressing on course. Now, the president also reaffirmed his administration's commitment to achieving a $1 trillion economy by 2030, stating that once the economy is rebased by early 2025 to capture its dynamism and reflect significant changes across various sectors, the country will be on track towards shared prosperity. He also stated that the proposed tax reforms are part of his administration's efforts to reduce the tax burden on small businesses and ensure a more equitable distribution of prosperity. The new tax regime aims to address the headquarters effect, where state hosting companies' headquarters benefit more due to the national taxes remitted by promoting spatial and demographic equity. Now, this GDP growth in the third quarter seems to underscore a positive impact on the reforms introduced by the Tinubu administration. However, the current situation of the economy as faced by Nigerian citizens seems to be otherwise. And joining us now to review this development and its implications on the economy is economy analyst Dr. Samson Simon. Many thanks for joining us on the show, Mr. Simon.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So what's your take to this report, and how would you underscore this development? Is it a positive impact, and does it reflect the Tinubu administration's reforms or does it portray it as positive?
Of course, it's a good development. These numbers are way above what we had in the third quarter of 2023, and is also higher than what we had in the second quarter of this year, and higher than what we had in the first quarter of this year. So this by itself is a local peak, in the sense that we did 3.19, and then in the start of this year, we even did less than 3% GDP growth at 2.98. So this is relatively a spectacular growth rate. And when you compare it to the third quarter of 2023, we have inched up by almost 100 basis points. So this is, I commend the government for this particular growth rate. But the problem still remains that this growth does not translate to anything better for Nigerians. Our lives better now in 2024 than they were in 2023? I don't think so. If you look at inflation, if you look at unemployment, if you look at poverty, if you look at insecurity, all of them have worsened. While GDP growth is commendable, but it's not really a sufficient condition for anything. It's a necessary condition, yes. And I give kudos to the government for seeing this positive growth. But it's not enough considering our population, considering the growth at which this population is going, the rate of growth at which this population is going. So it's not really enough. It doesn't move, it doesn't actually move the needle. It doesn't really change anything in the grand scheme of things. So there's still a lot that needs to be done for us to see actual impact on the lives of people.
Okay, and moving forward, since this is a positive development, like you said, what sectors would you advise the government to pay more attention to so that it will help improve the country's GDP further and probably start to translate to positive effects for Nigerian citizens?
Well, I think all sectors are equally important. All sectors are important if we want to see the growth that will really translate to better life for the Nigerian, then all sectors should be taken into consideration. But one sector that I think is very important is agriculture. I know agriculture actually improved, but it's not enough. Nigeria is still the worst place when it comes to affordability of food, and one of the worst places when it comes to the availability of food. We may be the largest producer of cassava or even yam, but we don't even have enough to sustain domestic consumption, let alone to export. So we're still punching below our weight. There's an urgent need to fix agriculture in Nigeria. If we are really serious about development, it's not about the basing GDP. You can base GDP and you have artificially big numbers, but it doesn't really benefit the average Nigerian. How is it better off because the GDP is the base? That's what I think people should be concerned about, particularly people in authority. It's not just about the numbers, it's about better life for the people that they are ruling.
Okay, and let's talk about, the depreciation of the naira, something that is very important and is bothering Nigerians right now, the exchange rate volatility. How do you see this aspect right now improving? If it's improved, how do you see it affecting individual businesses and, the economy in general?
By and large, the exchange rate has stabilized. For a while now, it has been actually within the same. And if you look at the difference between the official exchange rate and the value for parallel market, the difference might not be much. But that is not really enough in the sense that Nigerians like their naira strong. And so far, the naira is not strong. I was just discussing with somebody, one naira is 0.005 of the dollar. That was not the way it was even last year, even a few months ago. So there's still a lot that needs to be done. And we brag about our foreign exchange reserves accumulating. The accretion is remarkable, it's impressive. But I don't think foreign exchange reserves were growing fast. It's just a mere means to an end. What is the end? Better naira, better lives for people. We have not seen better naira, we have not seen better lives for Nigerians. So it's not yet the hoodoo. And there's a lot of this to be done. And we tend to demonize import, and recently, because we tend to be exporting more than the value of our export is more than the value of our import, the people in authority and all people around them were celebrating. That's not enough. Nigeria, in fact, under import less. That is not something to celebrate. The major problem we have is inability to export. So up to now, I've not tackled the problem. So by demonizing imports, we don't solve that problem of inability to export. The only merchandise export we embark upon is crude oil and gas. It's not like it's the only one, but the others are negligible. So there are a lot of things that we can export. Our MSMEs are punching below their weight. They are underperforming. There's a need to help them to export. There's a need for us to be an export-led economy, or at least while we were complaining about importing, we are by far, for our inability to export is far worse. So that's where the problem is. And we can actually work on it. But I doubt if the political will is there for us to spur export.
I like the fact that you're talking about us exporting, because if we do not move from being move from being a consumption-based nation to a production-based nation, I think our problems might continue to, become worse. But what would you say about Nigeria's current reliance on crude? Like you said, I don't know if you've seen the proposed 2025 budget. Nigeria plans to export over 2.06 million barrels of crude per day, and that is where we're relying majorly for our revenue. How do you think what other sectors should Nigeria diversify in? And how do you think this reliance on crude is affecting our foreign exchange earnings right now?
All right, before I talk about Nigeria's over-reliance on crude, I want to talk about production and consumption. We tend to demonize consumption, but consumption is as important as production. And the truth, just like export and import, we're doing so badly with production, right? But for the fact that we're doing badly with production, demonizing consumption doesn't solve the problem. What we need is, we need to consume more, we need to produce more. The truth is that the production is way below par, and we need to mobilize all resources to support production. But consumption is an important part of the economy. America today is the largest economy in the world. It's a $30 trillion economy. That's times 150 times the size of the Nigerian economy, because we are relatively measly, 199 billion. Are you trying to say because 70% of America's GDP is consumption, that consumption is bad, we should demonize it and they should decrease it, and by that decreasing their GDP? I don't think it makes sense. So what we need is to up our game with production. While there's nothing, in fact, Nigerians under-consume, so we need to produce. And you cannot have production if people are not consuming. People need to consume what you're producing. So they go hand in hand, and both of them are important. Just like import is as important as export, and so in economics, the objective is balance of payment equilibrium. That's where they balance out. Both of them are important. If you look at the largest exporters are the largest importers. The largest consumers are the largest producers. So both of them are important. And for our over-reliance on crude oil is a bad thing. We are a monocultural economy. It makes us vulnerable to changes in the international crude oil market. So we need to do everything possible to diversify our economy. We have been saying diversify, 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 but we have only been paying lip service to that. There's nothing tangible that's actually been done outside the cosmetics that we are used to seeing. So we need to go beyond just talking about it, beyond platitudes, to actually deliver the results on diversifying our economy away from crude oil.
Just before we let you go, just let us know, as a seasoned economist that you are, what advice do you have for the federal government and the central bank also to invest in other sectors? What should they do to sustain this current GDP growth so that Nigerian citizens can start to see an effect of the growth?
Well, I have to commend the government for us having this growth. At least is beyond expectation as far as the projections for IMF are concerned. So we have overperformed what they projected. They reviewed our growth from 3.3 to 3.1% to even 2.9, and here we are doing 3.46. But we're still doing below what we projected for ourselves. The government projected 3.76. We have not done anything close to that. This is the closest to 3.76 that we have come to, and it's 30%, it's 30 basis points lower. So there is a need to spur more growth, and we should not limit ourselves to growth alone. We should see development. Growth is a necessary condition, but it's not a sufficient condition for development. And the objective is development. We need to have inclusive growth. We need to have sustainable growth. It's achievable if we really have the political will. And
Hello, Mr. Sampson, can you hear me? Or I think we lost him. You're still watching Business Daily. Before we go on a break, the Central Bank of Nigeria has extended the deadline for BDC operators to recapitalize by 6 months. Find out more right after this break. Welcome back. You're still watching Business Daily. The federal government, through the Nigerian Shippers Council, says it has concluded plans to implement the International Cargo Tracking Note to enhance Nigeria's security and boost revenue generation. The Executive Secretary of the Council, Pius Akute, disclosed this at a recent event in Lagos, while stating that the commencement of the International Cargo Tracking Note was in line with President Bola Tinubu's administration, which seeks to diversify the revenue base of Nigeria's economy. Akute further stated that efforts are also in place by the Nigeria Shippers Council to implement some new innovations, such as the adoption and implementation of enterprise content management to improve internal work processes and procedures of the Council. Now, he further emphasized that the global shift towards e-commerce and digital trade presents an opportunity for the Nigerian Shippers Council to enhance its digital capabilities and lead the way in automating port operations, customs processes, and supply chain management. According to him, the Shippers Council's involvement in fostering public-private partnerships in the development of port infrastructure, logistics facilities, and transport networks presents an opportunity for collaboration with private investors, which could help alleviate infrastructure challenges in the country. In another development, the Association of Bureau de Change of Nigeria has revealed that the Central Bank of Nigeria has extended the deadline for BDC operators to recapitalize by 6 months. The association president, Aminu Gwadepe, revealed this during a virtual meeting with its members. Now, with this extension, the new deadline for the recapitalization will be June 3, 2025. Recall that in May, the CBN issued new operational guidelines for BDCs, which became effective June 3, directing all existing BDCs to reapply for a new license according to their preferred categories, which are either Tier 1 and Tier 2 BDCs, as well as meet the minimum capital requirements of the license category applied for within 6 months from the effective date of the deadline and the guidelines. According to the guidelines, BDCs with Tier 1 licenses are expected to have a capital base worth 2 billion naira, while Tier 2 licenses must have at least 500 million naira with non-refundable license fees of 5 million naira and 2 million naira, respectively. Elsewhere in Africa, Zimbabwe will pay $331 million to white former farmers whose land the nation seized in 2000 as a step towards getting creditors to agree to restructure the nation's debt pile, which has left it locked out of international capital markets for more than 2 decades. The ADB president, Akinwumi Adesina, made this known at the conference with the nation's creditors in the capital, Harare. Zimbabwe has set aside $35 million in this year's budget to begin repayments. And the president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, in 2022, solicited the help of Adesina and the former Mozambique leader, Joaquim Chissano, to spearhead the talks with creditors, including the World Bank, Paris Club, European Investment Bank, as well as the AFDB. And on the global scene, the European Union plans to offer Morocco 200 million euros to help with post-earthquake reconstruction, and the EU Commissioner for Neighbouring and Enlargement, Oliver Verhelyi, said on Monday as the two parties navigate judicial headwinds. The 6.8 magnitude quake, Morocco's deadliest since 1960, struck on September 8, 2023, killing more than 2,900 people and damaging vital infrastructure. Now, Morocco said that it would invest in a post-earthquake reconstruction plan that includes the upgrade of infrastructure in 5 years. The EU will also increase its total quake reconstruction aid to Morocco to 1 billion euros, and the president told a press conference in Rabat following talks with Foreign Minister Nasser Bourita. Relations between Morocco and the EU are strained after the European Court of Justice annulled fishing and agricultural deals between the two parties over products from disputed Western Sahara. Also, the EU's relationship with Morocco needs to be protected from judicial harassment. And Burita said that Adi said that, and I quote, there will be no partnerships at the expense of Morocco's territorial integrity. In the United States, President-elect Donald Trump said on Monday that he would sign an executive order imposing a 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States from Mexico and Canada. Trump, on his social media, said that tariffs would remain in place until the two countries clamp down on drugs, particularly fentanyl, and migrants crossing the border illegally. In a follow-up post, Trump announced that the U.S. will be charging China an additional 10% tariff above any additional tariffs on all their many products coming into the United States of America. According to Trump, the reason for the additional tariff was China's failure to curb the number of drugs entering the United States. Canada's Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, released a statement on Monday evening saying that the country places the highest priority on the border security and the integrity of its shared borders with the United States. Well, that's where we draw the curtain today on Business Daily. Don't forget, you can also join the conversation and get more updates and business news via our content hub at www.ln247.news. You can also visit our social media platforms at LN247. I am Amaka Daniels. Many thanks for watching.